Hello once again, and welcome back to the Rise Up Rooted Global Wellness Symposium, the Spring 22 edition. I'm your host, Alex Strauss, and I'm so glad you're with me. You know, twice a year, we initiate this global conversation with speakers and coaches and artists and authors and teachers from all over the world who have learned to, what I like to call, recognize and embrace the wisdom and wonder of the natural world in their lives and in their work. And we specifically reach out to people who are trying to teach others and bring others into this idea and help other people connect to their own relationship with the natural world as well. And so that's what we are about here at the Rise Up Rooted Symposium. And today I am delighted to introduce to you Dr. Laura Koniver. Now, Dr. Koniver is an author, a holistic physician, and a speaker who is internationally recognized as one of the world's leading grounding advocates. She runs a popular healthcare blog on her website, intuitionphysician.com, leads online health classes in holistic medicine, has been featured as an expert protagonist in 4 motion pictures on the healing power of grounding, and those include The Grounded in 2013, Heal for Free in 2015, Down to Earth in 2018, and The Earthing Movie in 2019. She writes a routine health column for the national organic lifestyle magazine, Mary Jane's Farm, published the first and only children's book on the healing power of grounding called From the Ground Up in 2012, and the first book on grounding written by a female physician as well, which is called The Earth Prescription, and that came out in May of 2020. The Earth Prescription reviews the science behind grounding, which we're going to talk about today, and introduces a new field of medicine, which Dr. Koniver calls conductive medicine. Dr. Koniver believes that conductive medicine is the future of medicine and will completely transform health and longevity as we know it. So I am super excited to welcome Dr. Koniver today. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, of course. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it.
So let's just jump right into what you mean when you're talking about conductive medicine. What is that?
Okay. Well, in medicine, conventional medicine, we already recognize that the body is totally conductive. And not only does it conduct electrical impulses, but that is how we measure its health. So when you put an EEG on someone's brain to measure their brainwave patterns, we're measuring the electrical output of our brain. Same with the heart. Everyone knows what an EKG looks like, right? The rhythm of the heartbeat. And that's how we measure that. We can measure anything, your muscles contracting. So in conventional medicine, we already realize that electrical health helps us tell the health of the human body. What conventional medicine has not also then put together is, where do we tank that up from? I mean, we plug our cell phone in every night because it needs a battery charge. We know electronics need to be charged. We know that our home system needs to be grounded for its safety. And we know our body's electrical. Yet, and for some reason in medicine, we haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, that we can actually look at conductive health in a way of preserving well-being, not just diagnosing illness. So like I can see if you had a heart attack, I can see if you had a stroke electrically, we can look at that electrically, but most mainstream physicians haven't thought the reason it's electrical might be because we actually get boosted and resonant and healthier when we're in electrical contact with something. So it kind of begs the question, what would be the natural partner to help restore our body? So instead of monitoring our electrical conductive health for disease, how about we use it for our health? And that's what grounding is.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Because it's our whole body is set up electrically and conductively. There's not one thing that you can't blink your eyelids, can't talk, can't breathe without electrical impulses. So if our whole body is designed to be electrical, it's absolutely not a coincidence that we live on an electrical planet that resonates out a frequency that's the exact same frequency of all of these organ systems when they're in health. So the alpha brainwave patterns, which is when your brain is restoring health, when you're sleeping and during meditation, is the exact same frequency as the earth. So far, again, in conventional medicine, we've just said, oh, if there's a problem with electrical health, then there's a problem with the body. But they haven't looked at how can we maintain electrical health. And that, I do believe, will be the future once enough conventional physicians read enough of the medical literature to put 2 and 2 together. But so far, having gone through medical school, now I went through 20 years ago, but they didn't say not one sentence about it.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you about that. So we're going to get into some of the science in a minute, but you had a traditional Western medicine training, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get connected to this idea? Where did you first hear about it? How did you get interested? And Yeah, tell us a little bit about that journey.
So in order to do that, I definitely had to step away from conventional medicine. And what I did was I became a mom. And so when I had my daughter, I wanted to be home with her, especially in the early years, I was nursing and just, and, when you become a mom, you start looking at things in a whole different way. And so what really happened is my daughter had colic and she cried and cried and cried. And again, I was conventionally trained. So first thing I did was take her into her pediatrician and said, why is she crying? And they said, oh, she has colic and here's some medications. They tried to put her on 2 prescriptions for reflux. And they said, let her cry it out, stick her in a crib, ignore her. Well, none of that felt right to me. Because all of a sudden I'm a mom. Like if, I probably said the same things to other moms when I hadn't been a mom yet, but then it was my baby. I'm like, first of all, I'm not letting her cry it out. Second of all, I don't know that she needs to be on prescription medications at 3 days old. So none of that, it rubbed me wrong. So I really did step away from conventional medicine and I said, I'm just gonna be a mom for a little while. And the only thing I found that made her stop crying was while we were nursing, or if I was outside on the earth. And I lived in Arizona at the time, so I was always barefoot. It was very mild there. So I'd be holding her. She's, couldn't even sit up by herself. I'm talking about young, weeks old, crying and crying and crying. But if I would hold her and I'd walk outside, she'd fall asleep. It's the only time she wasn't in pain. And it wasn't placebo effect, because if she was outside in a stroller or outside in the car, she'd be crying and in pain. And if I stepped inside the house, but she was dead asleep, her body would wake herself up with the pain again. So it was not like, oh, she just likes fresh air. I started really realizing there's something with me holding her outside on the earth. And that's all we did for her whole childhood. And then I had her little brother 2 years later. And literally we just spent the first, 5 years of their lives literally on the earth, because that was when they felt the best. So I did not know what it was called. And I did not know what I was doing for years and years and years. When I went to re-enter medicine, someone said, you seem so grounded. And you know how when people say grounded, they usually mean like your energy is centered. And I thought, that's interesting. And it just, something about it. So I said, what the heck? And I plugged in the word grounding to a PubMed search, which searches medical literature. Like, maybe it's a thing, I don't know. And there was years and years and years of published medical studies that I had not been aware of in the medical literature looking at grounding the human body. And I was like, why did I not hear anything about it? So, and now that research has continued. There's been 25 years now of published medical literature on the science of grounding. But I had to go about it the back way of just having a child in pain. And that was the only thing that worked.
Wow. When I read that story somewhere, I found that online, you talking about your experience with your daughter. I had a very similar experience with my first baby, who was very, very, she was colicky as well, cried a lot. And I actually used to, and I would jiggle her around and walk around, and we tried driving, and, we tried everything. And I would take her out and I would lay her on the ground.
Yes.
Underneath a tree.
Aww.
And we had a tree in our front yard, and we lived in a very windy area, and I would lie her on the ground, lay her on the ground, and she would look up and see the tree leaf, and she would calm. And I always kind of attributed it to the trees, to the sunlight and the distraction and the wind and whatnot. But now I'm thinking, well, I was actually, maybe there was something else.
It was therapeutic for sure. I agree. Wow. At first, when Clara would calm down, I thought, oh, she just likes hearing the birds, or like it's the last thing you think of is that I'm making an electrical connection, because we just don't talk about that. We're not taught that. But yeah, I think you were healing your child for sure.
Isn't that so interesting? Wow. So let's talk, before we go into the medical literature on this, because I do want to talk about some of the research. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty and explain to people. Now, we've said the body is electrical. So what is the deal with getting in touch with the earth? What does that do, and how does that work as we understand it?
So when I talk about grounding, I physically mean touching our body to the actual earth, so that it's like, or using a ground cord, some way that we're literally making an electrical connection and actually letting the electrical DC energy that the earth pulses with to affect our DC energy, which is the function, that's all the natural world functions off of DC energy, not fake man-made AC energy. A lot of people confuse it and they think we're talking about electricity in the sense of what we discovered like 150 years ago. No, there was nature, human beings, health, way before we discovered and made light bulbs and air conditioning. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the DC natural energy that the earth puts out. And so in order to connect with it in the sense that I'm talking about with grounding, it's a direct, you have to actually touch it or be conductive with it through a grounding tool in some way. So I mean, there's a lot of health benefits to meditation and other ways to ground the spirit. But when I'm talking about grounding as a physician, I literally mean touching the actual earth. And then it does measurably change things like your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your blood pressure, your brainwave patterns, your thyroid, your metabolism. And we can go into all that. Yeah, it literally actually changes those parameters. And in double-blind medical studies, we've shown that to be true. But so, yeah, when we're talking about grounding for the rest of this interview, people should be aware it means touching the earth, because without directly touching it, I'm not electrically conductive with it.
So what happens when that touch happens?
Yeah, it's instantaneous. This is what I mean. Like, it's beyond coincidence. It's, it's divine design, I think, that our human body is so receptive to conductive energy, because every cell in your body, every single cell in your body can conduct this DC energy, but that's how it functions. So not just your cell, but the plasma in your cell is electric. It's like an electrical gel, and the cell membrane conducts an electrical impulse. And then the cells together, the tissues conduct an electrical impulse, and then the tissues together make an organ system that works electrically. And so if you touch the earth with one fingertip or one toe, or it doesn't matter, you could lean against a tree with your cheek, your entire body, this is how conductive we are. Within less than a second, our entire body is grounded from head to toe. Completely. So in the medical studies, it was very common to put a grounding patch on the bottom of someone's foot, and within a second you could see change up in their face, capillaries in the back of their eye and their retina, for example, change and dilate. So that's how quick your entire body, you don't have to ground the part of your body that you want to target, because your whole body will get grounded like that. And sorry if I'm rambling too much, but the exciting thing about the fact that we're so conductive is it's direct healing. So, and nothing is not conductive. So even if you have an infection, like, this sounds gross, but the pus is conductive, and the scar tissue, if you have an old injury, the scar tissue is conductive. Well, there's no healing modality in medicine like that, because if I'm giving you a pill, I have to rely that your gut is healthy enough to absorb it, and that your circulatory system is healthy enough to distribute it, and that hopefully then it makes an effect. So you're relying on the health of the body to heal your body. And that's why you get a plateau in healing, because if my gut's not healthy and I'm not absorbing it, it doesn't help. Or, any other modality, drinking fresh juices, or everything relies on the health of your body, even breathing and distributing oxygen. And the only thing that doesn't rely on the health of your body that you can do completely passively is grounding. And your body will be grounded from head to toe, no matter how ill or diseased or non-functional it is. There's not one cell in your body that won't.
And when your body becomes grounded, what is happening? What is happening to your cells? How does, I guess I'm trying to get at, how does healing take place when that grounding happens?
So I can go through the organ systems and say what we know the changes for each organ system. But as far as how, that's a very good question. And I don't want to pretend that we really know. All I know is that a lot of people have a theory that electrons come in from the earth and neutralize free radical damage and help. I think it's more electrical than that. I don't think it's just neutralizing free radicals and stuff. I really think it's the DC energy of the earth. As simple as saying, like, okay, well, I guess it's the same as saying, how does plugging in my cell phone make the battery recharge? I mean, I don't really know how batteries work, but I do know that electrically it's providing, the energy to then power that cell phone for the next day. And so, and yet with human beings, like, so it could be electrons, it could be, I don't know, magnetic, it could be, I'm not sure exactly why, but I do know that plugging our electrical body into the electrical earth, I can tell you specific parameters of what it does to vagal tone and what it does to, the different organ systems of your body. And it's a different response for each thing, boost immunity, that kind of thing. So if we go organ system by organ system, I can be more detailed. But as to why would it help, I can only say because we're electrically based, and we only function if we have healthy electrical activity. And that's why if someone's coding and they take the paddles and they're trying to jumpstart your heart, right? Because we need electrical conductivity or we're not alive. So, but I don't really know the why behind that. That would be like a God kind of answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Okay, good. I love that answer. So let's talk about some of the science. You said there's been 25 years worth of research on this. We don't hear a lot about it. So I'm tickled to bring it to folks here in the symposium. But let's talk about some of the most notable research and just share with us what you know.
Okay. Well, first of all, for the people listening who are interested and who want to read the medical literature for themselves, because there's such a lack of this knowledge and information on my website, I do have a medical studies page. If you click that, I have every single, and not just, that I've written about it, but that you can click it and be taken to the journal it was published in and read the publication yourself. So if people are interested in nitty gritty, that's all there on my website.
Perfect.
I would say the things that people are most interested in off the top of my head is what it does to help with insomnia. It really helps to put the brain very instantly, because we can all understand that the brain is electrical. Every part of your body is, but we all intuitively know the brain conducts impulses. And so when you're connected to the earth, it puts it in that alpha healing state. And you get into a healing state 3 ways. In deep sleep, you naturally, even if you're ungrounded, your brain will heal during sleep. Prolonged meditation puts your brain in that alpha healing wave. And grounding. Well, grounding's the easiest because you can't always sleep, especially if you're anxious or you're working a night shift. I can't meditate worth crap. So like 5 minutes.
Same.
The only way my brain's really going into a healing state is when I'm grounding, or if I'm lucky enough to catch decent sleep. So it's the most easy, because you can multitask and be grounded, so it's the easiest, most passive way to heal your body. So
Wow.
the brain has an instant change. Another thing that a lot of people enjoy about grounding is that it boosts your metabolism. Again, we're not totally sure why, but when we look at thyroid hormones, it stabilizes and boosts it. It also decreases your cortisol levels, so it decreases stress. And then it also boosts your basal resting, like the amount of calories you burn just at rest. So it helps regulate your heart rate and your respiratory rate and your blood pressure, and it helps you burn calories at rest, basically. So it's like a passive way. And in fact, I ran an informal study with my own patients. I took a dozen volunteers who wanted to lose a little weight. And I told them, don't change anything about what you eat. Don't exercise, just 15 minutes or more a day. You're going to touch the earth. And the majority of people, their metabolism was boosted enough that they lost on average 1 pound a week. Some people lost a lot more and some people a little bit less. But if you averaged it out, it was 1 pound a week for doing nothing else. And that's because the earth starts boosting how your body functions. You start optimizing how you burn calories and how your thyroid is and your energy level and your mood and all that kind of stuff. So that, I could go on in other organ systems too, but mostly people, everyone I meet, not everyone, but most people want to boost their metabolism.
Right.
Because I believe that's one of the reasons it slowed us down as we age. Because how many years have we now disconnected without charging?
Right.
Like our phone, we would have thrown it in the garbage 50 years. That doesn't last a day without recharging it. So if we go for decades without plugging our body in and we get frustrated that it seems like it's slowing down, plug back in and see how it helps you. And then a lot of people have problems, including myself, with sleep. So grounding can really help with that too. And then the last thing, I guess, that most people like to talk about right in this moment because of COVID and pandemic type things, most people are really aware of our immune system and just wanting to naturally have a boosted immune system. And there have been medical studies, again, posted on my website that show that it decreases inflammation. So that includes in your lungs, and it boosts your immune response, which is great. So it brings more different factors in your bloodstream that help defeat pathogens. It boosts those naturally.
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, these are legitimate medical studies.
They're
they're placebo-controlled, they're whatever, so that that they're not just sort of anecdotal.
So the way they accomplished that usually was to have people use grounding tools, because it's then easy to have a cord that really grounds the grounding mat or the grounding patch that's on the body, and then a cord that won't ground it, but the patient doesn't know if they're grounded or not. And then we measure the parameters that we're looking at in that particular study, and there is a statistically significant difference.
Okay, so for sure now we've got some people who are definitely interested, and they're saying, wow, well, this sounds fantastic. I want to sleep better. I want to lose weight. I want to have a boosted immunity. I want to be overall healthier. So how do we do it? What do we do?
So, and then most people, their first thing is, well, I don't have a yard. So I don't have a safe green space. So that's lucky for people who have a yard, but I don't. Right. And to be absolutely honest, I don't have a yard either. So I live in a more urban setting, and there are ways that everybody can go outside and directly touch the earth and get grounded. And then if they're not, as a fallback, you can do indoor grounding tools, which we can talk about separate, but I don't want to promote the grounding tools, because what I want to promote is people connecting with the earth itself. Because as I'm sure you're talking about in your entire symposium, there's benefits beyond just the electrical. I mean, there's the vitamin D, and there's the probiotics that you're, the flora that you're around, and the pheromones from the trees. I mean, there's just so many things. So I don't want people to think a grounding tool means you don't have to go outside. But there is that for people who have mobility issues and are recovering and rehab. So there is a role for grounding tools. But for the most part, I just want people to go outside. And there's a couple tips for people who don't have a yard that they can really capitalize on. One is that sidewalk is grounded. almost everyone has access. Even if you're in a prison yard, you usually have a slab of cement or concrete. And for me, it's my garage. So in the cold, I'm in my garage on my concrete slab,
Okay.
barefoot with my little space heater reading a book, and I'm grounded to the earth. And most people have some sidewalk. And even if you don't want to be barefoot, you can just sit there with your hand resting on the edge of the side, like on a street curb. So like, okay, if I'm on a long drive and I just need a break, I'll go to a rest stop and I'll sit on the edge and find a curb that's not asphalt because the black tar will block grounding, but the cement curb. And I'll just put my hand there and just take 10 minutes and then get back in the car and go on my way.
Wow.
So even in urban settings, like, like parking garages and basements and sidewalk can all be grounded, and as will metal that's in the earth. So a signpost, I've tested it with the ground test meter. At the crosswalk, I'm waiting, I push the button and you're waiting for your turn to go across, and you touch the metal pole and you're grounded, because that is into the earth or into the sidewalk, which is also grounded. And that's how conductive things are. So metal, cement, concrete. And then the other tip is almost everyone can find some kind of foliage, like a tree, even if it's growing like in the parking lot of the mall, there's usually a tree somewhere. And if it's growing and rooted out of the earth, not a fake tree, but in the earth, if I just touch a leaf. So if you have a favorite tree you walk by, you can just stop for a few minutes and touch that. And I'd rather you do that than an indoor grounding tool. If you're going to get the mail and by the mailboxes is a bush, just touch that for a few minutes is all it takes for your entire body to start to shift. Now, I would say the longer, the better. But even if it's just a minute, that's better than nothing.
So we're going to touch on that in just a second, but so I understand, if I'm touching that tree, can I have my shoes on?
Yes, 100%. You can be in the winter with, you could be in a tent with a sleeping bag, whatever, as warm and padded as you want. It only takes one cell of your body and your body will be grounded. So I don't care what part of your body that is. You can even have gloves on and boots and socks and like you just touch your face, it just doesn't matter what part of your body it is.
Okay, because that's something that I've heard, and I've thought about myself. What do I do in the winter? I live in a pretty mild climate, so I'm lucky. I can go out there barefoot today, but I may not want to do that in January. Right. Always think about this earth and grounding idea as just walking barefoot or being out.
Like it's only a summertime thing, but that's not. And now actually, and I mean, I have these on my website, but I'm sure you can find them elsewhere as well. I have conductive gloves, so you don't even have to expose skin. You can have a glove on and still it'll conduct right through, and conductive shoe stickers you can put on your boots. So there's so many different ways. I make a conductive hiking stick if you like to go hiking in, but you want to obviously have boots on to protect your feet. So you ground through your hand through the hiking stick. There are a lot of ways to troubleshoot being outside and still touching the earth.
Wow. So, I want to ask about that because I have a stick, I have a cane made out of wood that I use when I walk. Yeah. If I'm walking with that and I'm poking it down into the earth, does that wood conduct?
So that is a fantastic point. It would if it was living, so a living tree would, but since it's dried out into lumber, if you're on your deck or if you're on a dried wood bench or if you're using a hiking stick, once it dries out, and the same with our body, if you have really dry calloused skin or like your hair, that's the only thing that will insulate you and it won't ground. So dried wood, no, but there is a way to run a conductive metal sticker that goes from the bottom of your cane all the way to where your hand is. And then yes, it just needs, so you can modify your cane and you can definitely ground through that, or your walking stick for sure. But it just isn't, the dry wood isn't conductive.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions about this. My mind is just buzzing. I'm trying to think of the things that people will want to know. So let's talk about time and how much time it takes, what's optimal. And also, frankly, most of us are living pretty busy lives. And while it would be great if we could go lie on the earth for a couple hours a day, probably not practical for most of us. So what do you recommend for optimal health?
Okay. Well, it seems to me that just a direct answer to that would be 15 minutes or more a day does make a difference, because again, in the weight loss study that I ran, it was 15 minutes a day. And that did make a difference in their metabolism and their mood and their energy level and all that, calories burned and their weight. So I would say 15 minutes. Now you do have benefit after 1 second. So I can run through really quick if you want the different organ systems and how quick it takes. So within a few seconds, your circulation is improved, your blood is flowing more freely, and so your blood pressure can go down, your circulation can get a boost. So like if your head is stressed, your muscles are tense, you start to feel warmer, and you start to notice that your muscles start to relax. Literally muscle tension, which we can measure electrically, does decrease the second you start touching the earth. So if I have a terrible tension headache, do I have to go out for 15 minutes? No, I can go out for a second and take a deep breath. 5 minutes. If I'm having a panic attack, I can go sit on the earth and feel myself calm and regulate within a minute. So there's application for very short spurts. But if you want to have accrued benefits, so when you're not grounding, the second you're off the earth, you're not grounded again. It doesn't last. It's not. So if you want to have cumulative benefits, so I realize that 23.5 hours of the day, I'm not grounded. I do think that 15 minutes or ideally a half hour of grounding a day has enough benefit that it accumulates. So in other words, if I'm doing that every day for at least 15 minutes, I might start to notice my sleep is better because my cortisol levels are lowering and other longer term parameters. But short term, there's still, it still helps. If I'm eating something and I have heartburn, I can go get grounded right now and it'll help my vagal tone. It'll help digestion right in a minute or two. But if I want to have accrued benefits, and we're talking about organ systems working together, hormones shifting, metabolism changing, I would say at least 15 minutes a day, but ideally longer. And some of the studies, like the sleep studies, were done with people grounding overnight on sleeping surfaces. So it just depends on what you're targeting. But I always do like to say, because most people don't hear this, they hear that they have to do it for hours, and you don't. I've gone out so many times with a tension headache for 5 minutes and I feel better.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you personally do? What's your favorite grounding?
Yeah. So for me, it's definitely direct with the earth. So I like to start and end the day. And this is a great tip for people who they're so busy and they have to multitask. So for me, I try and pick one meal to take outside. So for me, it's usually coffee and toast. Because if I'm going to sit there for 5 minutes and drink a coffee, I'm going to try and do it outside unless the weather is really bad. Or if I get through the whole day and I realize I have not gone outside, I haven't touched the earth at all, I will stand outside and look up at the stars, because to me, there's no better reset. And also I know that it's calming my brain. It's putting that in that alpha wave pattern. So if I can just give it 15 minutes, I know I'll sleep better that night. So I'll just stand out there on my sidewalk and look up and just remember, like, all the things I'm stressed out about are really not that big of a deal when I'm just spinning in space on a planet. And also I physically feel better and I can go to bed. So those are the two things I like to recommend to people who just can't fit it in the middle of the day. But the other thing I do when it's bad weather is I do go in my garage, and whether I read, whether I return emails, whether I'm talking on the phone, whether I'm Marco Poloing with my mom, whatever I'm doing, whether I'm just filling out my menu, my grocery list, with my feet in the garage on that cement slab, I can have so many blankets on and my space heater on, and I'm warm and I'm dry and I'm grounded.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I do it. If I was going to go on a trip or long periods of time where I really couldn't find access to the earth, but again, there's almost no situation where you can't have some kind of access, then I would do a grounding tool. And so for times in my life, I've slept on grounding pads and stuff like that. But right now I'm in this nice rhythm where I can go outside at least 15 minutes. And I feel like if you can get 15 minutes or more on the earth directly, you don't really have a need for grounding tools.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many other benefits, as you said, if you are taking yourself, especially if you're taking yourself outside, all of those other things that we've talked about throughout this whole symposium, right? All of the different things that we've talked about, the ways our senses are stimulated, and the vitamin D and the sunlight and all of the benefits, plus this. It's like, if you are not motivated to go outside for a few minutes, after this, I don't know what's gonna move you.
Because you're exactly right. Because medical studies have shown that even seeing a tree through a window helps people use less pain medication and get out of the ICU faster. So if seeing a tree, isn't enough, then realizing that touching it, can you imagine touching the earth and seeing a tree and getting, it's like you need a whole symposium to go over the benefits of being in nature, right? So this is just the tiniest aspect of electrical conductivity. But like you said, layer on everything else and it's like you crave it. You need to be outside.
Do you feel like you get to the point where you feel it physically and or mentally if you haven't done that during the day? Like, not just knowing it intellectually that you should, but you feel it.
Yeah, 1,000%. If I am in a bad mood, I ask myself, have I gone outside and touched the earth? Really, like, it's that bad. Or even my kids will be like, hey, Mom, your energy's a little toxic here. Go outside, and they're like, and also if I haven't been sleeping well in a while, if I have heartburn or something like that. And a real world application is I had an abscess in one of my tonsils, so I had to get my tonsil taken out. And I was so nauseous from the anesthesia. And like right after you have throat surgery, you do not want to puke. I mean, it hurts so bad, you don't, right? It's the last thing you want to do. So I ran outside. Literally, once I got home, I literally just laid on the earth, and it was the only time I wasn't nauseous. This is how quick it affects you. and I would be like, oh, I gotta go inside and check on the kids or start to make dinner or whatever. And I would go back in the house and instantly just about to throw up and run back and lay on the earth, so it's that quick. You can definitely feel when you're not grounded and when you're grounded. And if you do it enough, you'll get really good at what is your cue? What is mine might be insomnia, someone else and mood, someone else's might be tension headache, someone else's might be energy level, someone else's might be nausea, someone else's might be heartburn. You'll find what yours is for you. When people have fibromyalgia, they can feel it immediately, that muscle tension decreases. So whatever type of person you are, use that as your litmus test of whether you feel that you're getting enough grounding or not.
Do you think people can feel it within just a couple of minutes? So if we told somebody after this session, try it for yourself,
yeah,
and go outside and feel it, do you find that is it possible?
Oh, not only possible, like 1,000% within seconds.
Oh, wow.
Like literally go out. You know how that feels. Literally go out and I dare you to go out and take 3 deep breaths touching the earth and tell me you don't feel different after 3 breaths. Just 3. So whatever that is, less than a minute.
Yeah, right. But again, the secret is, and we just want to be clear here, that your skin has to be touching the earth, some
right.
part of your skin. So you can't do, so even though in some other sessions and other things, we've talked about going out and taking 3 deep breaths, with shoes on, right? We've gone out, we talked about walking in nature and being outside, having a sit spot, meditating and taking deep breaths or whatever. But if you want to be grounded, some part of your skin, whether it's your hand or your foot or something, your face, like Dr. Koniver said, but you need to have skin to earth.
You do, or you need to know that your clothing is conductive. So like I said, you can have conductive socks and conductive, but if you don't know that, and most clothing is synthetic polyester, they won't plastic. That's why sole of a shoe is plastic. It's not going to let any electrical conductivity through. If anything, it's insulating. Most of our clothes are like that. I will say this though. I have a grounding test meter and I've tested, my jeans or my pajamas, or if you're sleeping grounded, I've tested putting a fitted sheet over a grounding tool so that you can just wash your fitted sheet instead of, make your grounding tool dirty. And I'd say in testing everything, about 1/3 of our clothing and sheets and bedding allow grounding through. So you can't say that you're not grounded, especially if moisture is involved. So if you have cotton socks and you've been sweaty and you take your feet out of the sneakers but leave the socks on, or it's a summer day and you have shorts, even jeans, if you're like, if it's moist outside and you're just sitting there for long enough with enough body weight, like pressure, I would say 1/3 of the time you are actually grounding through clothes. Obviously, if it's a really thick, like winter jacket, that's plastic, probably not. But a lot of clothes you can. And so like I've tested, here's an example. I have a cotton picnic blanket that I sewed myself, and it's pretty thick because I sewed it with cotton fabric and then some wool batting and then cotton fabric. And it's this little quilt I use for picnics. And I've tested it, and not immediately, but after I've been sitting on it for a few minutes while it's on the earth, but it's not on dry sand, it's on grass, which brings its own moisture. But I'm grounded through even that, which is 2 layers of cotton and some wool batting. So I do think if you have natural fibers and it's enough pressure, like your body weight on it, you can ground through fabrics too. So I wouldn't rule that out, but I can't promise it. So that's why it's the easiest to say, very soon.
Yeah, right. How about swimming? What about swimming? What if I go swimming this summer in a lake?
Yeah, totally grounded. It's the best. Yeah. Water is the highest conductivity. So water is always the number one. And in fact, lack of water, like your hiking stick, or very, very dry sand, will preclude grounding. So you do have to have some kind of moisture. But usually, like, that's how the human body brings it. So the bottom of our feet get sweaty naturally and our palms get sweaty. And I think part of that evolutionarily is so that we are more conductive when we touch the earth, in case the earth itself is dry. But yeah, if you can go out in the morning dew, or if you can go and walk, and not just, you don't even have to be submerged in water. Remember, it's one cell in your body. So if you're on a canoe and you're out of the water and you put one fingertip in the water, you might as well be swimming in it. You're grounded from head to toe. Or if you're at the pool, and it's an in-ground pool, and so it has cement when you're sitting on the edge, you're just as grounded sitting on the cement edge or with one foot in the pool as if you were swimming in the pool. But of course, submerging your body is a no-brainer. You're totally grounded.
Now, I want to ask you a question that just has come up when we were talking earlier about electricity and the electrical nature of the body and whatnot. Started thinking about how they say you're not supposed to have your cell phone in the bedroom, right? Or it's a good idea not to have electrical appliances around you when you sleep, because it can actually interrupt your sleep, and that whole idea about electromagnetic fields and stuff. So I'm confused. So A little bit.
You're 1,000%. That's very insightful that you brought it up, because most people will talk about grounding and not put two and two together, that this is one of the reasons EMFs harms our body. And we know that as well. There's medical studies that show that as well, even though conventional medicine is trying to ignore that. It's very true. Just as DC energy, natural energy from the earth, absolutely puts your body in a healing state. Artificial man-made AC energy, electrical fields and Wi-Fi and cell phone signals, because we're so conductive, that's why we're vulnerable to that. So we're vulnerable to unnatural, man-made electrical radiation. And that's why on my website, half of my content is about grounding and the other half is about shielding and reducing. So I work with a lot of electrosensitive people. And I honestly think we're all electrosensitive, because there's nothing on you that's not electrically conductive. Same with me. It's just, can I feel it or not? Like, do I get a headache from it or not? But even if I don't get a headache and I don't feel it, and people are like, it doesn't bother me, I sleep. No, but electronically, if I hook you up, your brain is not as in deep healing brainwave patterns when you're sleeping, for sure. Because just because you're not sensitive enough to pick up on it, it's still you have a human body that's conductive. So you're exactly right. We want to have distance from sources of radiation. We want to decrease what we can. If you're very sensitive, you might want to shield. And in fact, that there's such an overlap that I have created a grounding cord that is filtered and shielded, so that even the grounding tool is not impacted by your electrical fake man, because most people are using a grounding tool. That's one reason why it's just best to go outside. Most people are using a grounding tool, but they got an electrical lamp and they might have, there's something that they're right. So there's an overlap, but here's where it's not an overlap. It's the DC energy from the earth that our body functions off of. And it's the AC energy, fake man-made type of frequencies, electric smog, that harms our body. So there isn't an overlap there. It's just that, but we're conductive in both fields. So we want to intentionally, because we know we live in e-smog, so we want to intentionally take some time to be in the natural DC energy field. If we don't do that, we are really shifting the balance of our health in an unnatural way.
I wonder if that, do you ever think about whether or not that the increase in that kind of electrical, what do you call it, e-smog?
Yeah.
Electrical smog, it has anything to do with the increase in certain kinds of chronic health problems?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's accelerating our disconnect, basically. It's stressful. It causes inflammation in our body. Like, you're right, like being disconnected from the earth, even if we hadn't invented electricity and that kind of thing, it's still stressful on the body to be disconnected. But now that we've added the artificial stuff, it's exponentially stressful, and it actually causes not just inflammation, but the most damaging part is neuroinflammation.
Wow.
And in fact, and the government recognizes this. This is what I don't understand. We don't talk about it in conventional medicine, but the government, the Pentagon, has issued and is doing a study. It's called the Iceman study. And it's looking at, they understand that Air Force pilots in cockpits are so inundated. They're wearing the headsets and they have the panel of electron, and there's so much e-smog or EMFs that they actually become confused, and they have lost billions and billions of dollars of aircrafts and many lives due to pilot confusion. Why is the government looking into that? It's because it's losing them money. It's not about human health. It's because there's so many really expensive million and billion dollar aircrafts that are getting crashed based on pilot confusion, that they want to look into how they can now shield and protect pilots. So it's not really about health for the government, or it's about just saving money or whatever. It's about, bottom line is the buck. So, but if it was about health, we would be looking at it as a normal, for every human being, not just people who are crashing billion-dollar airplanes.
Right. Well, now we know. And this is a simple fix. We've given you a lot of great tools to use in this symposium, and this is definitely one of them that I hope you'll take advantage of. Now, real quick before we go, and we will have a link to Dr. Koniver's site, intuition-physician.com, on her page, but and those medical studies, as she mentioned. But you have a little free gift for us as well, a guidebook. You want to talk about that?
So this is the easiest way. If you're interested in grounding, but you don't want to be overwhelmed, I created a very simple free book, and you can give it to anyone you want, friends and family, because I want everyone to be able to do this in a non-overwhelming way. It's 10 minutes a day for 10 days. If you don't feel markedly different after 10 days, then ignore it. But I really think if you give it 10 minutes a day for 10 days, you'll notice a difference in your health. I really do. So that's just a little ebook encouraging you every single day what you can do for 10 minutes today, tomorrow, the next day. And by the end, you will feel better than you do right now.
Perfect. Wow, that's fantastic. Hope you will go and grab that. And thank you so much for offering it, Dr. Koniver. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was an honor.
Have a wonderful rest of spring. And thanks for being with us. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.